Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lex at LexReads, and today we're going to be doing the Pride Flag book tag. The original tag for this was done by Common Spence, and I will link the video down below for you to go and check out. But without further ado, let's just get into the tag. Question 1 is red, which stands for life in the flag. So this is a protagonist who is so totally proud of who they are, or a protagonist that gives you life. And for this one, I'm gonna throw out These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. Our protagonist, Hannah, is a lesbian, and this is not a coming out story by any means. The book opens, we know she's a lesbian. She's so proud of her identity and who she is, not only as a lesbian, but also as an elemental witch. God, I adore this book. It's one of my favorite books, maybe ever. It's definitely one of my favorite books I've read this year. The sequel, This Coven Won't Break, equally phenomenal. Shove that back where it lives. But this book follows a teenage elemental witch named Hannah who lives in Salem, Massachusetts. And she had a run-in before the book starts with a blood witch, thinks a blood witch is out to get her, and then when the book picks up, there's a blood witch in Salem, and bad stuff is happening, and it seems like someone is out to get her coven, and she and her friends group together to try and solve this mystery. Witchy murder mystery with a badass, killer, amazing lesbian protagonist. The study of Hannah's relationships, both with her new girlfriend and her ex-girlfriend, are both great. Absolutely adored it. So good. And there's also just a ton of diversity in it. We have like a trans supporting character who in the second book is closer to a main character. We have I do believe a couple non-binary characters. We have a bisexual main character. We have Hannah, who's a lesbian. We have a few other lesbians. There's just a whole lot of diversity going on, and we love to see it. Orange is for healing. And this prompt is a book that helped you as a reader find catharsis or a deeper meaning in your own life. For me, that book is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. Y'all, this book is another one of my favorite books of all time that I've ever read. It's phenomenal. It is so touching. I cried so hard. But I think really for me, what I took out of this book, the things that were so important and like my biggest takeaways is just the idea that like in our world, we can never be sure when our last day is going to be, so we should commit fiercely to the love and passion and happiness that we find in the everyday things. This book takes place, it's a kind of like very light fantasy. It takes place in a world where everyone gets a phone call on their last day of life from Deathcast, so everyone knows when they're going to die. And we follow two characters, Mateo and Rufus, both of whom have gotten their Deathcast call and know that it's their last day. And there's this app called, Last Friends, I think it's called? Yes, Last Friend. And through it, they meet each other, and they spend their last day getting to know each other. There's like a little bit of insta-love. They do kind of fall in love. Spoiler, not spoiler. It's sad. And if you think they're not going to die, stop, because they do. But like I said, what I really got from this book was just that you should not take advantage of any day that you have, and you should always commit to the happiness and passion and love that you have and find in your everyday life. And, oh, this book. The next one is Yellow Sunshine, a book that could brighten even your darkest day. Controversial pick right here. I'm calling The King's Men by Nora Sakamoto. Oh, just kidding. I just said a spoiler, so we're going to cut that. The queer relationship at the forefront-ish of this book. It's the B plot, but in the B plot of this book is arguably one of my favorite written relationships of all time, which is a hot take, and if you want to hear me talk more about that, I think I talked about it in my Let's Talk About the Offer the Game series video, which I will link down below for your viewing pleasure, if that's something you're interested in. But if you want to know more about my feelings, I will always talk about it. I love these characters. I love this series. It's my problematic fave. It really is. It's my problematic fave. And hot take, the relationship is not the most problematic part of this. It's actually, in a lot of ways, a pretty like a healthier relationship than a lot of the other relationships I've read in my life. The emphasis on explicit verbal consent in these books, specifically this book, basically exclusively this book, is so important to me, and the respect that these two men have for each other, astronomical. We love to see it. This is the third book in the All for the Game series by Nora Sakovic, which is one of my favorite book series. I'm sorry. The first book, we follow Neil Jostin, who has been on the run from his crime lord murderer father for 8 years when the book picks up, but he gets approached by a college XC coach. XC is this made-up bastard sport between like hockey and lacrosse and soccer. So he gets approached by a coach, signs to this team even though he knows that it's basically a death sentence. And then eventually we get here, which I can't tell you what happens in this book or I'll spoil the other two. You should maybe read it. Once again, maybe check out my other video. These books are not for everyone. But they can and will and do brighten even my worst of days, so fight me. Green, or Nature, a book that is set in a different reality or world than our own. For this, I'm going to talk about my favorite book that I have read so far in 2020. That is We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Mejia. This book, it's a Latinx queer dystopian. We follow our protagonist exists in this world where she's gone to basically this prestigious boarding school, and at the end of the prestigious boarding school, all the affluent men get 2 wives, a primera and a segunda. The primera is in charge of, like, making sure the house is running smoothly, and they're supposed to be, like, the man's right-hand woman and help with the business and whatever. And then the segunda is supposed to make sure everyone's happy and they bear the children and stuff like that. Our protagonist ends up accidentally a part of the resistance. So Daniela ends up accidentally part of the resistance, falls in love with her segunda. It's really good. That's what I'm going to say about that. This one, like I said, the world looks different than our own. It's beautiful. I love it. Blue, or Peace, a book where one of the characters finds peace with a difficult truth. There were a lot of these. They both die at the end. They both kind of make peace with their death. The book that I'm going to talk about next, I was really torn between putting it for these 2 prompts. The one that I'm actually going to talk about also works for the last prompt. That's Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This book is very interesting. It is a YA horror mystery following 3 girls, Hetty, Byatt, and Reese, who used to they went to/go to school on this island where this sickness called the tox exists. So they are now all quarantined on the island, and it's just girls. Everyone says it's like a feminist female Lord of the Flies. I thoroughly disagree with that, but in the sense that, yeah, there's a ton of girls like teenage girls trapped on an island, sure. But the Tox basically like changes their body. So there's body horror. We have like fish scales, weird spine things. Our protagonist's eye is weird. Like there's some like legit body horror going on in this. I really enjoy body. These girls have to address some very hard truths, especially near the end of this book, especially about like why they're there, why everything is happening, whether or not there is a way for it to get better for them. All of those things are addressed. We got some queer romance going on between two of our main gals. This is another one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and I highly recommend it if you like horror, thriller, mystery, anything in that boat. I really do recommend this book. It's beautiful. And last but not least, this one was really hard for me. The last prompt, of course, is Purple, which is Spirit, and this is a book that deals with themes of being LGBT plus and religion. And when I was looking at all of the books that I've read that are queer, I realized that I haven't really read very many, if any, books that really deal with religion and queerness. And when I think like queer and religion, I think more the like big three, like Muslim, Christianity, and Judaism. Which is probably just because I was raised Catholic, so I always think first Christianity when I think of queerness and religion. I think the closest I probably have to a book that talks about this is Birthday by Meredith Russo, which I really, really enjoyed. This is a very, very touching, moving book. This one, I also considered putting it for a protagonist that has to make peace with something big and, hard and difficult truth. That's the word. But also, I thought about putting it for a book that was cathartic or made you address some of your own stuff. I also considered putting that for this one. But this book follows two teenagers, but we watch them through basically their whole life, and they were best friends as little kids, and they meet up every year on their birthday because they have the same birthday. And their names are Morgan and Eric, and Morgan is trans. And she has to deal with that, and we get to watch her deal with that through basically all of her adolescence. And it is not really Morgan's family that creates this weird religion and sexuality thing. It's actually more Eric's family, if I remember correctly. I read this back in February, and I think I remember Eric's dad being a homophobic asshole. And I do believe that religion had something to do with that. But like I said, I don't actually read, I think because I had to live through it, the whole religion and queerness duality, and it was not fun, and I did not enjoy that little section of my life. So I just kind of avoid reading about it, which is funny because that's not how I feel about most things. I usually like to read about similar experiences that I've had, but I kind of just avoid that one. So I haven't had very much experience with that. If you have any really good recommendations that you think I would like in regards to this topic, sexuality and religion, drop them down below and I'll check them out, because that maybe is something that I should commit to a little bit more in my reading. But yes, Birthday by Meredith Russo. Very good book. All right, friends, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you in a few days. Have a nice rest of your day.